Saturday evening review. Tonight we're going to be reviewing the 1993 classic, yes, I called it a classic, Cliffhanger, starring Sylvester Stallone and John Lithgow, just to name a few. This film is directed by Renny Harlin, who is a Finnish director. He's had some ups and he's had some downs. But he came to Hollywood in the 80s and he made a name for himself. He directed Die Hard 2, which Nicole and I reviewed on my old channel right around Christmas.
I'm watching this now. It's a nice, happy movie where somebody falls in love and gets married, probably. Not this garbage where somebody falls to their demise at the very beginning of the movie.
Spoiler alert! You left the light on. It's ruining my ambiance.
Hey, keep that in the review, please. This will be a good video.
This movie, it's not for everybody. It's not for sensitive pregnant women. So, hey, turn that light off. As my wife just so graciously shared with the viewing audience, there's a very pivotal opening scene. This movie has an hour and 52-minute runtime. The movie was shot on location in Italy, although it takes place in Hollywood land. It takes place in Colorado. There is a very intense opening scene where a girl falls to her death on a cable trying to get off of a mountain, and it's very dramatic. As you saw, my wife bursted and was not pleased that I made her watch this movie. She watched it off and on. I'll save her review for later. She's not gonna be in this review because she's very upset that I made her watch it. This movie was put out by a defunct studio called Carolico Pictures. It was an expensive movie to make. It cost $70 million to make, but it was very successful at the box office when it came out in May of 93. It went on to gross $255 million worldwide. Unfortunately, most of that money did not end up back in the hands of the studio, as they were deeply in debt for a lot of other failed productions, and they had to pay back a lot of their other debts. This movie was kind of an interesting journey. So Carolico brought on Stallone to star opposite John Candy in a neighborly feud movie. Kind of reminds me of the premise for that movie with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, which is called Neighbors. I think it's Belushi's last film before he died. This movie never came to be. They had a couple of other projects on the table that they spent millions in script writing and production trying to get these movies off the ground. None of those projects ever came to be. One of them was a failed sci-fi project that Ridley Scott was supposed to direct. That didn't happen. There was another movie about a hurricane called Gale Force. That didn't happen. And eventually the studio settled on the premise written by John Long, who is a rock climber, and he had been working in Hollywood. He worked on some of the Rambo films with Stallone. And his premise was eventually written into the screenplay that Sylvester Stallone and this other guy, Michael France, ended up writing together. And then we get the movie that we see here, Cliffhanger. So this movie is important because it holds a Guinness Book of World Records for the most costly aerial stunt ever performed in a movie, to the tune of $1 million. There's a scene between two airplanes where someone has to go down a cable 1,500 feet apart, linking the two airplanes together. If you take this movie seriously, it's kind of like ridiculous, right? It's so over the top. If you remember my review on Die Hard 2 that Renny Harlin directed, that movie is also over the top. Like, nothing that happens in this movie is probably ever going to really happen in real life. But if you can put that out of your mind, that a lot of this stuff is not based in reality, and just take it for a 90s action suspense movie, it becomes palpable and enjoyable. And obviously the public felt the same way because it made $255 million at the box office. It is action-packed. John Lithgow plays an amazing villain. You love to hate that character, and all the guys that they pick as the villains in this movie, you just love to hate him. I thought the casting was great, although Lithgow is supposedly English in the movie, and his accent is awful. It's still an enjoyable film. Rated R. Plenty of profanity and gratuitous violence, not for children. The rock climbing scenes are panned by a lot of the people that are serious into rock climbing as being very unrealistic. But like I said, if you just want a fun 80s, 90s classic action-packed movie, this is an escape. And I think it's a classic. I really do. The critics, not so much. Critics on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 68% average. IMDb, 6.5 out of 10. My wife was 3 out of 5. She wasn't a fan. She just doesn't get into the violence and all that stuff. It was too much for her, as you saw at the beginning of this clip. I am 4 out of 5. I think it's great. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it. That being said, I also looked up what Google users have rated it, and 105 people have reported their review of this movie, and their average is 4.2 out of 5. So they agree with me. A fun, enjoyable movie, a movie of its time. Stallone is great. Lithgow is great. I like the climbing scenes. I like the ridiculousness of surviving these plane crashes and being lost in the mountains in the winter and just trying to find your way back to civilization. There's multi-millions of dollars of money involved without getting too much into spoilers. Check it out. Cliffhanger, I'd like to know your comments on this movie as well. Until next time, we'll see you then, folks. Thanks for watching.